Welcome to hell. Hi, I'm Yvonne, and just for a little background, I just graduated from senior year high school as a humanities and social sciences student. And out of the 5 exams that I've taken, I have passed all 4 of them, UP not releasing the results until now. I'm going to try my best to give you as much advice as possible regarding some preparations before the actual examinations of college, and hopefully this will be of big help in the near future for those incoming grade 12 students or those who just want to see this in advance just for like a little background. And yeah, you wanna get started? Okay. As much as the examinations are important for the application of colleges, it is also as important to maintain or improve your grades in high school, grade 11 being the most crucial because that's mostly what a lot of colleges take account for. I'm not much of an academically inclined person when I was a younger person, but better to start as early as possible, especially when it comes to participative activities such as organizations or clubs, and you also need to improve on your other grades if you can. Pero kung late bloomer ka, like me, the best thing for you to do is to try to concentrate more on the examinations. You have to find review materials or ways for you to take time and study the needed things for the examinations. You could either do this through review centers or tutoring as well as self-studying. Again, like what I said regarding the grade, it's better for you to start early. The ones that I've taken were from Mentors Plus and Brain Train. They both have their uniqueness. If you're going to a review center though, it's better for you to make friends as much as possible because acquaintances will help you with missing activities that you didn't get to understand, as well as maybe even having a friend along just to have like a little fun. In my experience, it was one of the more social times of my life. Try to approach many of the teachers in the review center in order for you to maximize your capabilities in the certain lesson. Lastly, review centers actually provide mock tests. If ever that happens, no matter how far the peak of set seasons is, take it seriously as if it's the actual test because it's going to measure your capabilities in trying to pinpoint your strengths and your weaknesses. Number 2 is your self-studying habits. You could actually get a lot of resources from online. Along with this, you could also find some resources and materials from National Bookstore you could get from your ate. Even on social media, Twitter has like a lot of threads regarding this. There's like a few applications on the iOS that provide materials for you to study if ever you don't want to bring reviewers outside of school. Lastly, when it comes to self-study, it's also very inspiring for you to look for references, social influencers that could encourage you to improve your motivation in studying. Personally, I watched a lot of YouTubers, Ate Sophie Concho especially, and I've also seen a lot of other YouTubers who are going to Ateneo like me, so I need them for future use, kind of, just to get like a initial feel of everything. And you could also find a lot of study tips, specifically like from their habits. It's also important for you to create some studying habits. Number 1 is for you to know where you prefer to study. It will give you a sense of urgency depending on the environment. It really varies on the person. Staying in one area is okay, but in my experience, you tend to roam around, you get used to the environment easily. Number 2 is to have a strict schedule. I know that it's very tempting to get out of the schedule that you're trying to make. It's not really something that we're programmed to do. As you try to repeat this more often, it becomes a habit. So you don't exactly have to be too strict on the topics. you have to at least have the habit of studying an hour a day. And if you can, during the weekends, you could try to do like 5 hours. 3. Have your notes in one compiled binder or notebook. The reason for this is that it actually saves a lot of time for you to find certain notes that you've taken during review or self-studying. It's also very inconvenient for you whenever you bring it around. 2 things that you have to take note when doing this is for you to have self-control and reward. Basically, rewards are short-term goals that you obtain after being able to accomplish a certain task, subject, topic, so on and so forth. What you could do with rewards are movies or chocolate or food. You gotta give yourself something. You deserve it, guys. Don't be harsh on yourself. Number 5, just like the compiled notebook, you could actually compile even more of a summarized version of what you studied into skimmers. I kind of made it up, but then skimmers are basically just like small cards. I put them in a ring binder. It's going to allow you to bring around when you just feel like it, if you're in school and you don't have enough time in studying too much. Number 6, your breaks. I'm not saying that you have to take too much time, take your rest off, but always have a mentality that if you don't have anything to do, then you have to study. I know that it's going to be very tempting for you, but then try to find some gaps in your day and use them for studying. Number 7 is more applicable towards the latter parts of the studying before the examination. Rationalize your time. Most of the time used for strengthening your strengths, and the rest of it using it for the weaknesses. College examinations is not just the capabilities in knowledge, but also in endurance, confidence, and timing. In my experience, I've seen that these 4 were very crucial during the examinations because they want to see your capabilities in enduring the pressure, if you're able to strategize very well. An asset, this was very crucial with timing, and for UP, a lot with confidence. Lastly, if you're a little sad, you always have your family, you have your friends, get a little hug, reward yourself, self-love. You could also do this by putting a little motivation around your room. You could also put like what you improved, what you didn't. I personally did this on my phone when I wanted to get into UP before. Okay, next part, the hectic application process. Trust me on this and do this very early. Usually this takes a week long. I mean, it really depends on the person and depending on the availability of the materials that they already have. Sometimes we don't remember getting their birth certificates. You also have some forms. You have to get some recommendations, and it's very time-consuming, and you have to know your deadlines. The forms are done physically and online. Although LaSalle, from what I remember, they did it fully online, so you could also pay them online. And I know that a few other colleges, they required them to have recommendation letters from at least 2 school authorities. You have to check your email because again, most of them are both online and physical. Sometimes the passwords are there, sometimes the needed information for you to log in to the online websites are there. The most crucial part, which is the courses, should be taken seriously. The first choice should be something that you actually like, your dream course. And the second and courses below that should be a non-quota course. A non-quota course means that it's not really high in demand or doesn't really require a limited amount of students. Also, like the campuses, picking the campuses well are a big deal, especially in UP. When it comes to like a few of the schools like UA&P and Ateneo, they will require you to make essays. Think of it as a plot hill. Basically, the ones that you see in like literature, like the rising action, climax, denouement, if that's even a word. They're going to ask you something regarding yourself, like experiences that changed you for the better, or something regarding your opinion on certain topics. So it has to be from somewhere where it's like your lowest point, or you didn't really know much about yourself, but you started rising from that and you know how to improve more, and in the conclusion you say why exactly they want to accept you, because those papers are not just asking about you, they're also asking why they need you in some way. So especially during the conclusion, try to think of it as some sort of rebuttal on why you should get accepted, because like, oh, I've learned and now I want to apply this. The best thing for you to also catch their attention is to be straightforward, concise, but creative. You're up against thousands of other applicants, so you don't want them to just see this as like another essay. They don't want to read 3-4 pages. They want to see something that immediately talks about yourself. So it's best for you to put it in one whole page and try your best to also incorporate the values of the school into your writings. You have to know the school, you have to see the important values that they treasure a lot, such as like man for others or ad majorem, or like the values of Jesuits. I could only think about the name. Now we go on to the sets, the actual sets. I know that it's gonna be very tempting for you to study the day before, but don't. However, if you are a stressor like me, I'm not encouraging it because it really varies depending on the person. During the days before the actual exam, it's best for you to skim your review materials rather than reviewing a new topic. Again, you could use your card skimmers during the hours before the test, just like checking your formulas. There's nothing too specific, there's nothing too detailed, they're just formulas, basic knowledge. Skim, not review. And please rest. During the examinations, the best way for you to cope with all of the stress is for you to be as comfortable as possible, and you could do that by wearing loose clothes. For me, I did leggings, t-shirt, and a jacket. And wear jackets, not sweaters. If you're gonna wear sweaters, you're gonna be flailing around, and sometimes the proctor could actually call you out on that. For the food, it has to be very quick and easy to eat. Something that's convenient and not messy. A lot of people use chocolate, but then it's sticky and you don't want that to be put onto the papers. Even my friend recommends not to do that. What I prefer are usually like the nutrient-packed food, no junk food. No soda. I know that a teacher of mine experienced someone bringing beer during the exams. Stay healthy. Healthy, guys. Even a healthy breakfast. Usually people want to have it in packs like bread or crackers. So what I did was like a combination of all the recommendations of my review centers to put in the snacks. So I did like a peanut butter, strawberry, banana shake. Finally, the essentials. Of course, you have to bring your test permits and never forget them, because sometimes you have to print them, either that or you have to get them from the school. They also ask you to bring some other stuff, so maybe you could try to bring some extra 1x1s or files that you might need to bring just in case, and put them in a waterproof folder. Also bring a watch. Another thing you could bring is probably a lucky charm. I mean, why not? It might give you a little boost. Because the exam is very time consuming, know which questions you know how to do and which questions you can't answer easily. So if it takes more than 1 minute for you to figure out what to do with this certain question, you have to skip to the next ones. Intelligent guesses are better. It's like a process of elimination. So if you can't academically guess, go C for Christ or B for BIG4. Try to answer it with just one letter so that it gives you higher chances rather than doing random ones, which like sayang naman, diba? Another thing that you have to remember is to listen to the proctor. Whatever they try to instruct you to do it, or please listen carefully, don't do anything because you might miss something during the exams and it's really going to affect your results. You don't want to constantly write over the solutions that you just did because you're just gonna get confused and get the wrong answer. What I did was to divide my paper into 4s. I had to put like the first letters of the planet, horoscope, and the alphabet, the numbers, just in case. Sometimes the questions require you to read long readings. Read the questions first before actually skimming the reading, because you don't have a lot of time and you don't want to waste it too much dwelling on that certain reading. Skip a set in the reading comprehension where your question is confusing to you rather than skipping the question itself. Okay, on to the college specifics. Yay! Ow. The first exam that I took, oh my gosh, I forgot my English. Okay, the first exam that I took was CSB. The math and English are still there, but they're somewhat easier than usual. What's challenging about their exam is abstract reasoning. So they have like origami, like figures that you have to see if they're 3D, and then you have to see if like this shape fits that. What shape does the wall make if you look at it in this direction? Yung mga ganun. In the math part, they actually provided the formulas for conic sections and surface level trigonometry sa Katuwa. Their English was just like the usual English, and then they have 3 to 4 reading. You actually don't need to read the story. You could just go straight into the question and check it. And they have a digital timer, so you don't really need to worry about the clock being too far away if you're nearsighted. They start on time, but they don't end on time. As in, we were 2 hours early. They also give a free tour to parents that go with their kids to Benilde. Up next was UA&P. I actually didn't take the UA&P, but then my friend Kiara, oh my gosh, I love Kiara. Shout out to Kiara. Apparently, UA&P gives their exams in glossy paper, so it's recommended daw to bring number 1 pencil instead of a Mongol 2. They bougie. So, according to her, the English that they have is more on arranging and seeing which best suits the sentence. It's actually very easy, but then the syntax of like how the sentence is arranged could throw you off, so you just have to keep that in mind. In the mathematics part, they are very heavy though in statistics, probability, money, and word problems, so business math. The basic abstract reasoning is already included in the math part, so yun. They also have an essay that you have to do, so you have to pick among 3 topics that are regarding social issues, and with that you have to talk about it in an essay. Next, we have the Ateneo Asset. It was probably the most draining and mentally incapacitating quiz that I've taken among the 5. It not only demanded your knowledge, but it was really hard on the timing. There are 2 parts, one being like the basic knowledge, English, math, and then the next part is the speed tests. There's basically 4 parts in the language comprehension, and 1 of them being the essay, and 3 of them being just part of the grammar. English was somewhat the easiest part of Asset. It's better for you to finish first the essay before taking the rest of the quiz. Your mind's still fresh, and with that, you still need to utilize it for the rest of the exam, so might as well just use that creative juice first for the essay. For the math, it's not the hardest math I've seen, but it was still complicated. In terms of the contents of math, they are just like the usual math, except they're very heavy on concepts, so you have to brush up on like the additive and multiplicative properties. You also need to do like basic GCF, LCM. They were heavy on logarithms, a little bit of trigonometry. They weren't strong on geometry, but that might change depending on the year that you're gonna take. For the abstract part, they're not really heavy on like the Fibonacci or those kinds of like number patterns or yung mga analogy patterns. They're more on like the shapes, so just keep that in mind. It was very confusing. For the reading comprehensions in Ateneo, it's either 1 really long paragraph or 5 short paragraphs. There's really no way for you to get out of that trouble, and you have to try your best to speed skim because you only have 20 minutes for 25 items. Again, try to check the answers first before reading it. Instead of reading it as it is, you could try to find the main point in the beginning, middle, or end of the reading so that you could actually answer the rest of the questions. That could be a really good basis if you're pressed for time. Vocabulary was actually not that hard because they only asked the somewhat easy meanings of it. So example, what is another word for innovation? Logical reasoning is like probably the worst part in asset because so it had to do something with like lexical, stipulative, so on and so forth, affirmative, negative, somewhat negative. But then they also put some quotes or like sayings from pop culture references for some reason. So try your best to work your way through it. There was also something to do with like water can go on fire. Forgiving is not forgetting. Lastly-ish, you have the numerical ability. Basically another math part, but faster and harder and more complicated in my opinion because it's heavy on like business math, but it's mostly on word problems. By the time you do that, you're already fully drained. You just finished everything, but you don't know what to do with. The last one is an extra test. Depending on where you are, you're gonna be given either a language or a math test. Luckily, I was given a language test. In this part, they ask you to answer 9 items and to put the amount of time that it took for you to finish it. So for me, it took me 4 minutes. But then the maximum that you could do is 10. And they ask you if it's easy, if it's hard, ganun. Now, onwards to UP. Unlike the other colleges, because of how high in demand University of the Philippines is, they also have obtained a different method of scoring. So they call this the right minus wrong. Actually, there's been a lot of debate on how you should try to answer this, but this is personally how I did it. Because basically right minus wrong is when you get the answer wrong, it not just only deducts -1, they also deduct 1.25, so that's 1/4 of a point math. But in the case of not answering it, that's immediately a -1. So how exactly you're gonna do this? So what I did is, when I actually like have no idea how to answer it, I basically leave it blank. But then if I know that I'm gonna get it wrong, but then I could also try to find ways to do a process of elimination. I allot at most 13 items blank, because imagine if you're not gonna answer a question that you had a educational guess in. If it turns out that the question is actually correct, then sayang naman yung point, you still got a -1. But what if you got it right? That gives you more chances of having higher points. If you rationalize on which not to answer and which to answer, then it gives you higher chances of, passing. They accept you on how high you rank among all of the people who passed. So they base it on ranking and the number of slots they have for the school. The language proficiency, it's a half and half. So it's half English and half Filipino. Just like anything else, UP has one of the most complicated word problem items I've seen. I don't exactly remember what happened, but then if you're studying for word problems, you could try to find those complicated word problems in a lot of MSc reviewers that you could get from National Bookstore. Same thing with scientific ability. Their science proficiency is not too complicated except for the chemistry. The only reason why they say that UP is complicated is probably because of how draining it is, especially with reading being the last subject and having the whole exam with no break. So just saying, you could eat your snacks, but you're not gonna have a break, but you have a stretch break which lasts for like 20 seconds. So if that helps, probably. I'm praying for your endurance because these exams last for like 4 to 6 hours, and I'm not kidding. It's stressful. The LaSalle. There's not much to point out in LaSalle. The only thing that you have to keep note is the really complicated statistics and probability proficiency. Hindi siya yung parang if you're gonna toss a coin or like the card probability questions. They're more on like the actual statistics. Like statistics. There's a lot of tutorials on YouTube. Although, there are some parts in LaSalle where they're basic statistics, meaning like the median, mean, and then range and stuff. And during the latter part of DCAT, they gave a personality part. I'll give you an example. So, if the school got suspended because of a typhoon, but you have a social action activity due the next day, what will you do? A, will you stay at home? B, will you go to school? C, will you try to contact someone to do it for you? Usually, the personality test has something to do with the questions of what do you do when? So, like, you could do onting sip lang. But, as much as possible, be as honest. Because honesty is the best policy. Finally, the last test I've taken was UST, or Universidad or University of Santo Tomas. I don't remember what there is in mental ability. The one thing that you have to concentrate on is to strengthen your common sense, because that's all you need to do to answer this first part. But then when you go to the math and science part, that's a different story. Honestly, sobrang STEM-centered yung mga exam ng UST. You have to really put your formulas and concepts in there, especially for chemistry, physics, and biology. Math, you have to do some calculus, advanced algebra, especially conic sections, and then you're also going to get some trigonometry, like advanced trigonometry, as in I didn't know how to answer them for a while, so good luck on that. English also has some grammar and a bit of reading comprehension, but it's actually very centered on oral communication and citation. So check your grade 11 topics, and you also have to check if ever you had like some library topics and or some practical research. Yung mga qualitative, very, very basic lang. Yeah. That's it. So, you're done with sets. And it feels good to finish everything that you have taken, all the stress, all the sleepless nights. Don't do sleepless nights. But it was complicated, especially like with a lot of responsibilities as a senior year high school student. You're going through a process in between high school and college, and it's going to be hard on you, but you could only control so much, so don't be hard on yourself. Just do your best, whatever comes, and just trust the process, because you'll never know. Okay, bye.